Imagine having a career spanning over 400 films and 5.5 decades and still having the ability to surprise you with his acting performances. That, ladies and gentlemen, for you is Mamuka. I'm glad a movie like KalamKaval comes my way and I have an opportunity to watch it because what was initially a dream run for Mammootty post the pandemic was slightly tarnished this year from mid to terrible movies. A year with Dominic and the Lady's Purse, which I was not really creatively or emotionally impacted by, and the travesty that Bazooka was. I really got worried about the creative choices that Mammootty was making, a rare slump in the last few years that have included gems like Brahmyugam, Kathal the Core, Kannur Squad, Rorschach, and the most offbeat collaboration with Lijo Jose Pellicer. Here we have Mammootty collaborating with first-time director Jitin K. Jose, who has written the film as well with co-writer Jishnu Srikumar. Jitin K. Jose, who had previously written Kurup, which in hindsight I wasn't particularly a fan of, but I was curious about what he does with a legend like Mammootty. The movie is set in the early 2000s and 2010s in Kerala and focuses on S.I. Krishnan, played by Vinayakan, who has been assigned to understand why riots have been taking place in the southern part of the state, specifically Kotaikonam sharing the border with Tamil Nadu. Upon deeper investigation, the police officer realizes that the conflict is arising not because of communal conflict but due to a misunderstanding regarding a woman who is eloped with someone. Further to conclude that there has been a pattern carrying on for years where women have been disappearing in a similar fashion. The case unravels like a slow burn thriller only to reveal the sinister psycho who may be behind these calculated disappearances. As the marketing material relies heavily on Mammootty being the star face of the film, who has backed the film as a producer too, we all know that the dreaded antagonist is played by him. This could have easily been a generic basic run-of-the-mill investigative thriller, but I think the writing, treatment and especially the performances make it a little more special. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the movie so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch it in theaters or not. I can't help but create parallels. The trailer clearly sheds light on how the families of victims describe those who have disappeared as daughters or sisters, clearly denoting on how the targets are women and whether they will ever return. Mammootty is heard describing in the pre-release teaser that the greatest pleasure is when you kill a human, so I'm not giving spoilers away. When you do create parallels with the timeline in which the film is set and his targets, it's clear that the film is inspired by the gruesome murders conducted by Cyanide Mohan. The reason why I bring this topic up is because in the last year or so, including this movie, I've seen 3 portrayals of the similar modus operandi executed by the antagonist. This was true for Vijay Varma in The Heart that released on Prime Video, and this year with Jitendra Kumar in Bhagwat Chapter 1 Rakshas, a Z5 original film. While KalamKaval and specifically Mammootty's portrayal of the deranged individual is probably the most fascinating of the lot, I couldn't help but feel like the events were predictable in nature. The way the individual lures vulnerable women who find themselves in a desperate crossroads in life is something I've seen portrayed in 2 titles already. The silver lining being the writing and the performances of this film that compensate for it. But I couldn't help but convey to all of you that in the pursuit of wanting to create thrillers based on real events, it sometimes feels like we are just focusing on a select few cases. Individuals who are infamous, known to all of us, and have been portrayed in several mediums too. The influence of art and culture and screenplay. One of the most striking qualities as the investigation draws closer is the small snippets of information that gets disclosed to the officers about the possible psycho killer. As this is set in the era prior to smartphones becoming mainstream, observations of the small details noticed by witnesses become key. This is where individuals' obsession with vintage Tamil songs and his favorite cassette player become a striking feature. Composer Mujib Majid has done a spectacular job in providing the texture of old Tamil songs as Mammootty is on the prowl. What's very interesting is that in an era where if anyone dares to integrate Ilayaraja songs in their movies, they get hit with court orders from the legend. So what better than creating tunes that are reminiscent of the era versus straight up borrowing the legend's discography? You know the dread that you are stepping in for the moment the opening credit starts as the camera lays focus on the yellow cassette player and the killer's modus operandi flickers in its surroundings. From needles, jewelry and the nails of women, you anticipate the monster you will be introduced to as a track Redback plays in the background. I must commend the makers too regarding the spin that they bring in a movie that could have easily become a generic linear cat and mouse chase. Jitin K. Jose, through the screenplay, beautifully introduces an angle that absolutely changes the dynamic of the investigation. A great example of focusing on a topic that has been done by other production companies, but providing your own surprising spin to it. Knowing how things will develop, I was genuinely impressed on how brilliantly the interval block of this movie was staged. I'll be honest, I did not see it coming. What I also love about this crime thriller is that it doesn't go into the generic trope of focusing on a backstory trauma that essentially has led to the creation of this monster. The monster is just a monster. Humanity to victims. One of my biggest gripes with this movie, and why I am not screaming at the top of my lungs recommending it to everyone as if it's a masterpiece, is that when it focuses on the steps followed by the psycho killer as he targets women, the victims in this movie become mere moving images that are not provided the dignity of being understood. Hear me out when I say this, the screenplay at every stage of the killer trapping the women changes the person that he is interacting with. So from a technical point of view, girl A will be approached. In the subsequent scene, girl B will have a meal with him, and then immediately after, girl C would be undressed in a lodge with him. This creates a distance with the victims, portraying them to be easily manipulated and swayed. This, in my opinion, does not give them the respect and complexity that they deserve to state their case of what compels them to trust so blindly. While these are conveyed through the observation of Vinayakan's character, I hope the women who are divorcees of marriageable age or widows could have moments in the film where they could convey their individual struggle. While the film brilliantly showcases Mammootty's perspective and his deranged nature, I think the movie in some ways strips away the humanity from the victims, making them mere moving images versus people who we could understand. There is a shocking element of shame associated with the women going missing, families barely indulging in investigations for the vitriol that they will receive from society, and I feel like this was sparingly focused on, with the primary attention being diverted towards the investigation at hand. Speaking of which, tedious and realistic investigation. The film is 2 hours and 24 minutes long, and contrary to popular belief, I actually love the nature in which the investigation was portrayed. An era where technological advancement could not provide more detailed and specific answers, especially when it comes to locations being tracked through brick cell phones, the process of catching the killer is tedious, long, complicated, and the officers often finding themselves 3 steps behind. This may seem like a point of contention for those who want a thriller to pack in all the punches in an efficient running time, but the movie is a slow burn thriller that unpacks at a leisurely pace, and I think this was far more convincing than the convenient solutions we often find in commercial movies. My only gripe with how the screenplay develops is that it provides a very unintentionally funny action set piece between characters that strips it away from the understated nature of the film otherwise, and what I did feel was lacking, and it would have possibly elevated the film to become exceptional, would have been if there were moments or just one moment of a psychological face-off between Vinayakan and Mammootty. It would have allowed for 2 actors in great form to really show their mettle as performers. But alas. However, one thing cannot be denied, that the film is garnering great monetary riches also because of the primary characters. I've been used to seeing Vinayakan play the eccentric and over-the-top characters in movies. He is usually associated with characters who are unpredictable, violent, and who always have a sense of humor associated with even dread. I feel like through the years he has also been typecast because these portrayals are so popular, but he is brilliant as the investigating officer in the film because it is so far removed from what we have seen from him lately. He is straight-edged, no nonsense, and only cares about the goal at hand. You do not see commercial tropes of style and swagger being forced into the narrative. The man only cares about cracking the case, and it allows for us to believe that he will reach his goal, come what may. This is something that I feel about S.J. Surya too, who often gets typecast as the bumbling, shouting villain and who deserves something more anchored because he, much like Vinayakan, is versatile. However, Mammootty is just different sauce, man. Imagine where we see such creative stagnation around actors significantly younger than him, and Mammootty at 74 still has the ability to challenge himself and surprise the audience. He is a bona fide monster in this film. His gaze staring at women, doing a full scan from top to bottom, his arrogance and belief that he is invincible, all of it brilliantly formulates into a chilling portrayal of a person who can't help himself but kill. As he describes, greater the risk, more the satisfaction, and as Mammootty smokes his cigarette, staring at his prey, I couldn't help but feel like we are lucky to witness such magic in this era. A brilliant point in the screenplay of this movie is how he creates rings while he smokes a cigarette. This is when all is going to plan. And as the case develops and his plan is slowly crumbling in the process, the smoke in the air and the rings also become shapeless in the process. Do I feel like a significantly younger actor, probably in his late 30s and early 40s, would have been ideal for this role? For it would have been more pragmatic for the women to see the person as a romantic partner? Yes. A Fahad or an Asif Ali maybe, but other than the age debate, Mammootty is absolutely convincing as the psychopath on the loose. KalamKaval could have easily become a generic crime thriller, and even though it did not blow me away, trust Malayalam cinema through its screenplay to spring up some surprises and for the cast to absolutely put forth stellar performances, that this cinema from this state just draws me in to come to the theatre week in and week out. And that was a video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you think about KalamKaval. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.